friends. I'm coming to you a little bit late. I apologize. We had some technical difficulties, but I am here with Shawna Marie Fischer. We wanted to talk to you a little bit today about pets, the importance that they have in our lives, and how they impact us when they're with us and after we lose them. So, with that, I will tell you a little bit about myself. Have been a nurse for 29 years, and I have also become an advanced grief recovery specialist. So I work with grievers all around the world that are grieving because of the loss of something or change in their life. So that includes pet loss. And I encounter many people who've lost a pet and who are struggling because they feel that loss deeply in their heart. And that animal had such a huge impact. Their unconditional love was something that they were used to every single day, and not having that pet around anymore can just create all kinds of heartbreak. So I also create and facilitate women's retreats. So these are just a few things that I've been involved with, and I'm the author of a book, Journey to Peace and Healing, which came out in February. So with that, I want to introduce you to Shawna Marie Fischer so she can tell you a little bit about what she does. And I also apologize because my 5-month-old puppy is squeaking a toy in the background, but I feel like since we're talking about pets today, it's probably appropriate to let her be in the background.
Mute myself. I was trying to figure out how to share this to my page. I was like, how do I share this to my page? But I think it's great to be here, and it's great that Shania is back here in the background too, because truly the pets in our life do like bring us joy, right? And they remind us of the joy, right? They are so good at reminding us of the joy and being in the joy, right? It's like if we could be more in that space, like, right? It's amazing how they teach us all of that, right?
Right. So Shawna, tell everybody a little bit about what you do, because you've had such a great impact on our lives and our hearts. We're so grateful for you and your services that you have lovingly given to so many people in this world.
Oh, thank you so much. I love what I do so much. So what I do with people is I kind of call myself the bridge between your pet's thoughts and your thoughts, right? So it's kind of like that bridge of communication that's like, okay, like what's going on with my pet? So it's like I convey their messages and their love and their kind of like their inner thoughts that they want to convey to you, right? And their messages of like love, and that they want to remind people that it's okay. They want to remind us that it's okay to find joy again after loss, which is always really hard, right? And they help us to process loss and all of that, right? In so many ways. It's amazing.
Yeah, I grew up with golden retrievers, but until I had my own pet as an adult, I really didn't realize the impact that pets have on our lives. And as you know, we lost our kitty in December, and she had such a huge space in our hearts and in our household, despite the fact that she only weighed like less than 7 pounds when it was the end of her life. She still just held such a big space here. And, I know so many people, and I work with them too, that lose a pet and they are just grieving. And a lot of people don't understand that pets, to so many of us, are like one of our children.
They are like one of our children. And the thing too, like, like they get us more than a lot of the people in our lives get us, right? Because they see us like for all of who we are, right? The good, the bad, like they see all of our truths, and they like embrace like their unconditionalness with us all the time.
Yeah, that unconditional love is just something that is really hard to find outside of the realm of a pet. They just know how to do it. And like you said, they're full of joy each and every day. They might be upset because you leave them for a few minutes, but they've forgotten about it 5 minutes later. And they just want to show you love and sit on your lap or be by your side or just spend time with you.
Mm-hmm. They do. They want to share all of that, right? It's so amazing. They're so And they remind us really too to be like in the present moment, right? They remind us to be in the present moment. Like look at Shania back there. She's like, cool, I'm good. I got my toy. I'm having fun. And that's what I'm doing. And yeah.
Yeah, she's been a great addition to our life. When we lost Faith in December, I didn't know whether I wanted another animal. It was very difficult on me. And, there's two things that really helped me. One was the fact that I am a grief recovery specialist. I had the tools to work through my grief um, and loss related to Faith. And the other one was reaching out to you because there were so many questions I had in my mind about Faith and her life. And you gave us lots of reassurance that she was very happy with the life that we gave her and that she was still watching over us. So those two things have really impacted me being able to move forward in life. I'm guessing that you get a lot of people that contact you that say, I've lost my pet and I'm really sad and I don't know what to do and I don't have anybody to talk to about
Right.
it.
Yeah. And I want to know that they're okay. Right. And that because there is a lot of people that unfortunately like that they just don't get it. Right. They just don't get it. Right. They don't get the impact. Some people are like, oh, well, like it's just a dog, just a cat. And it's like, okay, like really, like why, how is that okay to say that? Right. Because if somebody's, a family member, like, a parent or an aunt or an uncle passes away, you're gonna be like, that was just your dad. That's no big deal, right? So, like, why is it okay that people say, like, oh, it's just, just a pet? Like, in my opinion, that's not okay because they are like a part of our family and they do have that like impact with our lives, right? Like, it's huge.
Yeah, that's totally true. And we talk about that in grief recovery that so often people express unhelpful comments. And it's not that they're trying to cause hurt or harm, it's that they want us to feel better. So they say something like, well, you can get another pet, or wow, your dog lasted 15 years, something to that effect. But they don't realize that that hurts our heart because you don't want to replace our pet. We can't replace our pet. It's like you can't replace your dad. You can't replace your friend. There is no replacing that happens. And the other thing is people oftentimes think that there's a time period that we're just going to feel better in a certain amount of time. And that's not really the case. I mean, I think we all have examples of something that happened in our life maybe a year ago, 5 years, 10 years ago that still hurts us deeply. And yeah, so it's what we do with that time. It's kind of like if you get a flat tire, if you sit there and wait, it's not just going to get better. It's going to
It's not gonna get better. It's gonna be like, okay, here, my flat tire's better. Like it's totally fine. It's
exactly
like, no, right? It's
so
yeah.
what you do with that time, that helps you heal your heart so that maybe you can welcome another pet into your life. There were some things that I did before Faith passed away and then after that, helped me get to the point where I could get another pet, Shania, who's been a great addition to our family. But, some of the things I learned in grief recovery was it's really important to have that communication with those we love. So I think it's sometimes easier for humans to think, oh, well, I need to tell you that I love you. I need to tell you that you're important to me. But sometimes people don't think about it. It's just as important with pets to talk to them and share what you've experienced with them and how it greatly impacted your life and how much you loved them. I spent the whole last week, we sat with Faith most of the day and just held her and told her how important she was to us, and got in those last moments so that we didn't have regrets. That was really important to our healing, moving forward. And then once she passed, to be able to remember her and all the great memories she had, that she created with us, that was a really important part.
Yeah, well, it's an important too. So two things that you touched on that I think are so important is, people like think like, oh gosh, like you should just get over this so quickly. But the way I look at it and what I tell a lot of the clients I work with is there's no time limit on grief, right? Like it's not something that you're just going to wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I'm so good now, right? Like I feel like it's always a part of us. And it's like sometimes there's things that like kind of open up that container, right? And I feel like it's when we have those moments, like it's okay to cry, it's okay to process those emotions, right? And I feel like we're just like taught like to just like tuck everything in and don't process those emotions. But if we don't process those emotions, like that's not good. We got to process those and like be with those and sit with those. And it's, you know, my Luna, the one that I wrote my soulmate dog book about, she passed away in 2017. And there's still some times like I just think about her and I cry. And then, like, that's okay. Like, and then there's times I like remember the joy. It's like there's a whole gamut of emotions and there's no like right or wrong, right? Like it's just it is what it is. And I feel like it's just if we embrace that more and like went through different steps of like grieving and processing and do like what works for us. So like with your grief recovery, I'd be curious to know, like when you work with people and pets, like what kind of things do you do with that to help them to process all of that?
So we take them through action-based steps. We have them look at, first of all, like all the pets that they've had in their life, and just to remember, the pets that came into their life, the pets that left their life. We have them look at their current pet's whole lifetime and the things that happened that were really joyful and the things that happened that were painful. And even with our animals, sometimes we have contentious relationships, right? Like yesterday, I took Shania out. I was busy working, but I took her out to the water and she decided to just act up. And by the time I got back in the car, I was covered head to toe in mud. And I'm like,
Right.
there's those moments too. And their life is everything that happens, the good and the bad. So, we need to remember those. And oftentimes, there's undelivered communications that we have with those that have passed, including our pets. And so we take them through a process so that we make sure there are no longer undelivered communications. And even though their pet is not here, it still has a huge impact on their healing. What we like is to people to get to the point where their hearts are no longer in so much pain that it's hard for them to move forward. When we're grieving, oftentimes it's hard to sleep, it's hard to eat, we're distracted. Many of us, engage in things like use of electronics, gaming, shopping, drinking, all kinds of addictive behaviors because we hurt. I mean, I remember when our kitty Faith passed, like I didn't want to come home anymore because I was so sad that she wasn't here. And in fact, the day after we lost her, we went out of town for a couple of days because I said, I just need to do this for a couple of days. I need a change of scenery. And, I knew I had work to do when I came home to process losing her. But it was important for me to take just a short period of time to, get out of the house and have a change of scenery. So it's like I said, an action-based program that really helps people move forward in their life. And, then we can choose whether or not we want to add another pet into our life at some point. And that choice comes from a healthy position versus I'm just trying to replace them.
Exactly right, because we don't replace them. The way I look at it, it's like we're sharing that love again. We're sharing that love again, and it's like, it's like there's no judgment as to when we get another pet. If we don't get another pet, like it's just a when that moment comes for us, and we just know, right? And it's really, I feel like, to processing those emotions, like, maybe if you need to cry, if you need to scream, right? If you need to like write it out. If you need to go for like a nice walk, like that's, I think, the grief recovery method. There's like those different steps that we go through, and like to have people have that plan in place and that support, because it's so important. It's so important to just be able to have that support. It's huge.
Well, it is. And like you kind of brought up, so many of us are taught from childhood, because our parents and those around us were taught the same, is, to be strong. And often that leads us to grieving alone, especially when we hear comments like, well, your pet lasted, a long time and you're lucky that you had them. Those kind of comments tend to keep us isolated, because we don't want to talk about our feelings, because someone might say something that causes us to hurt more. And so that's one of the worst things we can do, is isolate, but oftentimes it's the only thing that helps us feel safe. So it's so important to me that people understand that there are so many people that do understand how much it hurts to lose a pet, and that really there's no difference between that and an adult, because yes, it's a different form of a soul, but it still had such a huge impact on our life.
Yeah, it's still a loss, right? Because we're still processing the loss and the death of that relationship, right? So it's like still like it's not like a physical death, and it's almost like the pets in our life too. The way I look at it, it's like their energy imprint. It's like it's even though they're not physically here, they're with us in a different way. And like how I always like to tell people, it's like a connection with our heart space to their heart space, and it's something that's tangible that we feel and know with our hearts and our heart's eye, and that connection. So it's like their energy's still around, it's just in a different way. And a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people are like, oh, well, like they're not here anymore. But it's like, no, we can still connect with them. And one thing, oh my gosh, this is one of the most profound things. My mentor, Sunny Dawn Johnston, one of the things that I really learned from her that I embrace so much, it's like, wow, is if you focus on like the absence of somebody, you can't be in their presence. So be it somebody that's like, transitioning, or even somebody that's passed on. If we focus on like, oh, they're absent, we can't be on in the presence that's truly there, like in just a different way, right? And I'm sure you've had experiences with that with Faith, right? It's like, oh wait, like she's not physically here, but like I can feel her presence through like maybe these things that I have of hers or her ashes, right? Like, does that make sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's really interesting because Shania, who is Bernie's dog, exhibits a lot of characteristics of Faith. Does some of the same things. So we always say, we think Faith is your spirit animal.
Right.
Yeah. So, yes, they live on, and, there's so many things, in our environment, and just that remind us of her. And, thankfully, I have so many people in my life that I can talk to about Faith, and that understand what it feels like to have something you love with all of your heart and then lose it. I think you really offer that to people with your services, because you are validating their feelings of love and their feelings of loss. And sometimes what we need is just to be heard. It's not that we need to be fixed when we're grieving. We need to be heard. Yeah. And also it's really important when people say, I understand why you would be grieving. It's a big loss.
Yeah. Exactly. It's huge, right? And it's so important. And I have to say, most people be like, really? That's interesting. It's probably some of my favorite sessions I work with are the people that are, where their pet is transitioning or they have lost a pet, because it's really to help them, to give them that comfort, that peace of mind, and that connection, so they know that connection's still there. And then also too, to help the current pets in the household too, and then the pet parents and all of that too, because it's so hard. And I feel like I just wish more people understood that and grasped that. That's why I think it's so important too, the work you do with that too, to help people process through that, because it's not, which is really a bummer.
Yeah, sadly, I talk to people sometimes who just really feel alone. I talked to an individual about a month ago who had an experience where they lost their kitty, and they were feeling like they didn't do the right thing at the end, and suffering with that grief that had happened almost a year ago. And they indicated they didn't have anybody in their life to talk to about it. Like their children, their coworkers thought that they should be over it. And it just broke my heart,
Mm.
because sometimes we just don't have people that understand. I mean, they're not going to understand what we're going through because they're not in the same situation. Even if they've lost the same type of pet, their relationship with their pet is different than our relationship with our pet.
Yeah.
But still, just we need that compassion, and we need that love and that support and that listening heart to get through some of these things in life. And some people, their pet is their whole life.
Exactly. It's like sometimes it's their whole life, and it's like, their best friend, their only, their comfort. And, and also too, sometimes that like unprocessed grief can affect other areas in our lives. And like when we let that go, also too, one thing that happens is like we never completely let it go, because I do believe it's always a part of us. But when we work through processing that grief, we can feel their presence in like ways that we weren't able to feel it, because when we're blocked by that grief, we're not able to like really feel the feel that's in the moment. Does that make sense? We're not able to feel the feel that's in the moment.
Yeah, that's true, because our hearts are closed.
Yeah.
We're keeping, them just like in a cage because we're hurting. And often if we open them up, that causes the tears. That leads to, a day of not wanting to do anything because we're just so sad and we're expressing our feelings. And so many of us just want to try and keep things inside and be strong, like we talked about earlier. But you're right, it does end up affecting the rest of your life. I mean, it affects your job, it affects your relationships when you're feeling that pain inside.
Mm-hmm. It does, and we just don't realize it because we're like, oh, okay, like this over here, and we go over here, and then we're not like in that like focused lane, right? And it's like we could just focus on processing that and working with that, because they like one thing that a lot of the times the animals that I work with that have crossed over, that one thing they want to remind their people of is to find the joy and focus on like the happy memories, right? Don't focus on like the what ifs, because I feel like that's such a hard thing, is like at that end, people, like you're saying with that one person, like they question like, did I do the right thing? Because there's so much judgment with other people when it
Right.
comes to that. And we truly know our pets because we live with them. So we can know and we can feel that, right? Like even with my Luna dog, I could feel that energy from her because she had, cancer, and it just, she just wasn't the same. I could just tell like she was just slipping away, and it was just not really, her quality of life wasn't present. It's interesting because I had an old neighbor that said, oh, like she looks fine. Like she's still like, upright and moving and walking and all of this stuff. And I was like, oh gosh, like, so for that moment, that made me feel like, oh gosh, like, am I making the right decision? But I knew I was making the right decision because I could feel that, like, the cancer was like spread in her, and she wasn't really, she didn't have that quality of life, and that glimmer of life wasn't in her eyes. Like she wasn't really fully present, and I feel like there's those judgments on that, like, oh, we waited too long or we didn't do it soon enough. But really, like what the pets always remind me of a lot of time is like they did it when it was right for them. And I'm okay with that, because a lot of times the pets they're not like scared of death like we are. It's okay, they know that it's not the end of the end, that it's just a different existence.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I always remind people that just because their pets or people they love have passed doesn't mean the relationship is over. We still, there in spirit, and stuff still comes up for all of us. Like we remember things that happened during their lifetime. There's anniversaries. Some of those are really difficult for people, and I always caution individuals, the first anniversary of their death, the first birthday you pass and they're not around, that anniversary of when you got them.
Yeah, right. That's hard, right? All of those. And then sometimes we could turn that anniversary into like something like in a different way. So for my Luna, what was really important for me, the book that I wrote about her, the Soulmate Dog book, is I had it like published the day that I wanted to have it come out. She passed away on March 3rd, 2017. And I have it published. Oh my gosh, like, let me remember the year now. I'm like, how long has it been out now? I believe it was March 3rd of 2021 or 2022. I was like, has it been a year or two? Isn't that crazy that I can't remember that right now? But what the significance was I wanted it to be on March 3rd because that was like her new way to share like her wisdom and to help people through like her stories with our life together, right? And just so that was like really important. So I was like, how can I make a spin on that anniversary to have it not be something like, okay, like she's not here anymore, she's just teaching me from a different way now.
Right, you were able to really honor her life on that day, even though it was the day that she left you. So that's beautiful. So Shania keeps coming up to me, and I feel like since we keep talking about her, I should probably somehow get her on the screen. So
Shania, come say hi. Shania, come here, pretty girl. Look at her. Everybody wants to see Shania because she's so pretty.
Shania, come. I have treats.
Oh, there you go. Treats are always a good way to. Let's see. She's like, look at all my toys. Oh, look at her. Look at you.
Hi.
Look at how big you've gotten, Shania. Look at that. Oh, look at your bed.
She's pretty spoiled.
Look at that. I think you need a few more toys, Shania.
Yeah, she has 2 baskets full of toys.
Look at how big she's gotten. She's really grown. Because how old is she now?
She's 21 weeks today. So,
wow,
5 months and 1 week.
Wow. And then sometimes too, what's interesting too, is you brought up something interesting because you said that sometimes you can kind of feel like a little bit of like faith in her, right? Through different things she does. And I feel like that's important to bring up because sometimes like an animal in our life that's passed can kind of come through it in a brief moment in time through like another pet or like some, even like one that's ours or a random one that we encounter. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that and felt that multiple times, which to me is really comforting because to know that something I love that is only here in spirit, it's not physically here, is still a part of my life and still showing up in some ways, just provides some comfort to my heart.
It does, right? Yeah, it totally does. Yeah, and it's not like replacing them. It's like sharing that love, right? Because it's just, and it actually kind of sometimes kind of help us to process and deal with that grief, as crazy as that sounds. Because here, my Luna, like she is truly my soulmate dog. And when she got the cancer diagnosis, it was really hard. And when I kind of knew that, time was coming close and all of that, I started to look at the local humane societies. I was like, okay, like I know, like I, can't not have the presence of a dog in my life. So I started to look. And what's interesting is that same week that I knew like that it was the right time for her, that decision was important. That's when I met my dog Cool-Up. And she totally was not the kind of dog I was anticipating again. I was like, oh, I'm going to get another. And then animals teach us to be open, right? Because I was like, oh, I'm going to get another yellow lab again. I'm going to get some sort of lab mix. And then here at the Oregon Humane Society, there was like this beautiful, like shepherd spaniel mixed dog. And I don't know what it was, but I was just pulled to her. I was drawn to her. I was like, there's something about this dog. And I just couldn't stop thinking about her. And so I went back, I think it was like the next day. And somebody else, like this other family, had a hold on her, right? And so I put a hold on her too. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm putting a hold on this dog. This is crazy. Here I know I'm going to have the appointment for Luna this week, and I'm putting this hold on this dog. Well, what's really interesting is I had the appointment scheduled for Luna on Friday. It was a Friday evening. So it was Friday, March 3rd of 2017. And that afternoon, I was spending all that time I could with Luna. I got a call from the Humane Society that the other hold backed out. They're like, "Are you still interested in her?" The other hold backed out. And so here I was, like the next day, going to adopt another dog. And people, like, I had judgment from people. People are like, "Oh my gosh, like, I can't believe you went and did that. Like, you just went and got another dog so soon." And it was like, no, Luna needed to know that I would be able to have that. I can cry thinking about that. I would be able to have that distraction for her to be able to go and move on. Like, for her to know that I would have that other dog. And she helped me to heal because it gave me that presence of that other dog. And I'm not saying, for everybody that's the right thing to do. Like, maybe for you it is, maybe you need more time, but there's no right or wrong. Just like with grief, like, the most important thing, I think there's no right or wrong. There's no time limit on it. And it's, we process it. And it's about, we need to process it and get those emotions out, right? It's got to get them out. And writing my book was really helpful because Luna actually helped me with that. And it's interesting how that all works, right?
Yeah, I kind of had the same thing with Faith. She helped me with my book. And, I really felt like Faith stayed on this physical plane until she knew I was okay. Like, we thought we'd lose her a year earlier. She had a really bad experience with anesthesia. And for like 3 weeks, it was really touch and go. And she rallied for a whole nother year until I had a career change, left my nursing job, decided to go out on my own. And, she knew that I was content. And, I was writing my book. She was sitting by me while I was writing my book. So I got through that whole thing before I lost her. And so I just really felt like she was there for me and helped me. And she wanted to know that I was okay before she left. So
yeah. And they do. They want to know that we're okay, and how beautiful that you can feel that her presence was helping you with the writing of that book too, right? And what's the name of your book again, so people know?
Journey to Peace and Healing.
I love that. And it's about kind of like healing with grief and all of that.
It is. Yeah, it has stories about my journey and how I started, when I was about 30, really on the personal growth path and things that helped me. It has a lot of reflective questions in it. So that came out in February. And now I'm working on a book about faith to help people with pet loss. So.
Oh yeah. I'm just like grinning from ear to ear. Faith is like, yay. She says, yay.
So I don't know when that'll be out. It's going a little slow, but that's okay. It'll come out when it's meant to come out.
Yeah, like when it's meant to. It's all aligned, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
when we're in that right moment and in that right time, right? And I feel like if we could just really learn to really just embrace being more gentle with ourselves, like how amazing would that be, right?
yeah, and I think that's what's important. Like, I really want people to know that if you've lost a pet or, you're anticipating losing a pet that's ill, you're not alone. You can reach out to me, you can reach out to Shawna. We can both be resources to you, but I don't want you to grieve alone, because I think pet loss is really a difficult one because so many people don't understand and can say things that hurt our hearts more.
Yeah, they do. They don't get it. It's like, oh, she was 14 and like this and that. And it's like, okay, like, so just because she was 14, that means that like it's okay. Like, no, it's
Right.
all of that. It's just,
And, grief is normal and natural. When we have a loss or a change in our life, I mean, that is normal and natural to feel sad and to feel the pain.
yeah.
It's like when we lost Faith, every night at like her dinner time, we're like, what do we do?
Right.
Or in the morning, we had certain things that we used to do with her. and you get up and you feel a little bit lost. So all that is normal to experience that.
Right. Yeah. Because it changes our routine. It's like, wait, what do we do now? Right. It's like there's like those empty gaps. Right. So in the grief recovery method that you work with people, is there like ways that you can kind of help people to like fill those gaps? Like, to maybe do they write about it? Maybe start like a new routine or.
So we talk about all the, things that are painful at this point because, like, oh, getting up with her in the morning and having coffee, or you talk about all those and what those meant to you, how you feel about them or the loss of that activity. So a lot of people, just by being able to verbalize, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, that has a really healing impact on their lives.
Yeah, it's huge, right? It's so huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. You kind of like heal through the grief. And I feel like too, a good reminder for people, just because, you work through the grieving process doesn't mean that they're like that pet or that person isn't still going to be like an imprint in your heart or like a part of your heart and a part of your journey. It just means that, it can open up for more like messages and signs for them and more presence in that like present moment and that present time.
Yeah. No, that's totally true.
Yeah. And it's like those touchstones that help us connect with them. Like over here, I have my Luna's ashes, right? Like I have them in a box, and it's interesting. So I had this one person in my life tell me, like, and I was like, whoa, like I was taken off by it because they're like, well, she's not in there. And I was like, well, okay, like, and that really like hurt me, right? That's like some of those things that people say. And I was like, okay, yeah, like I know she's not in there, but what that is, like those ashes to me are a connecting point to me and her energy. Because there's been times, I'm not gonna lie, like I've gone and I've like held my hand on top of those ashes and like, okay, Luna, like I just want to like feel your presence. I'm having a hard time right now. And and that's helped me to connect with her like in a different way, right? And I have this little like dog figurine above me, and it's interesting, probably like about 2-3 years ago before she passed away, I was drawn to this one figurine. I was like, I really like this dog figurine, and I now call it my Luna figurine because I kind of feel her presence and her essence come through that. So it's like, it's a reminder to be gentle with yourself. And just because like, one person's human experience is like, oh, well, like, she's not in there, but still it's those touchstones that connect with us and them. Like, if you want to keep a blanket of theirs or like, some of their fur, like that's okay. Like it's okay. Like to me, like that's, it's like, it's okay. And if you don't, that's fine too. Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just accepting what is comforting to each individual. I mean, I have face stuff all over the house still. For toys and things, but we still have our kitty tower because at some point we will get another kitty. I still have her favorite blanket, which Shania doesn't get to lay on because you told us, Faith said, nobody gets to lay on that blanket.
That's my blanket, right? Exactly.
That's hanging over the bed. So yeah, those things, I think it's really important that we honor how we feel and the memories. And if those things bring us comfort, it's important to have them around, and I just encourage people, if you know someone who is going through a loss of a pet, sometimes the most comforting thing that can be said is just, I'm so sorry for your loss. I can't imagine how you feel.
Exactly, right? Like keep it simple. I feel like sometimes we try to do sometimes like less is more, right? Like it's just less is more. Like I have, oh my gosh, one of my best friends in the whole world, right? They have, all these different like health issues and stuff going on, right? And when I talk to her, like I don't like bring up like those health issues that she has going on because she like deals with that enough with like doctors and all this other stuff, right? But then if she brings it up to me, I listen, but I don't like dredge it into the ground, be like, how's it going with that today? And even like with if you know somebody that lost a pet, you can let them know, like our personal life, like, hey, like I'm here for you if you need anything. But we don't have to like like, does that make sense? We don't have to like kind of I don't want to say turn the corkscrew, but like to like dredge it up. But if they want to talk about it, like talk about it with them, right? Let them know that you're a sounding board and that it's okay, you know, right? Does it make sense? You know,
Yeah, that's important. I mean, we talk about faith all the time, and um, you know, people that are close to me bring up faith all the time. For me, at the point I am in my healing, it brings me more comfort to talk about faith than it doesn't, right? And you know, I think it's so common in life when we've had a loss that people don't bring up that loss. Like if you've lost a child or a dad or a mom or whatever, people don't want to say anything because they don't want you to feel sad, but they need that individual or that pet to be remembered. That's important to them.
Exactly. They need that them to be remembered. It's so important. Yeah. And so important for them and be that like talking point, you know, support person just to listen. Because I think that's the most important thing too, is for people to remember that like sometimes people just need that somebody to listen. Like with my friend, when she talks about all that stuff going on, like I just listen, you know, and sometimes that's what people need is they listen. They don't need like solutions. They just need a listening ear.
Correct.
And somebody to really be listening, not with like listening with how to respond, but just truly listening. And then also too, so I had a dear friend that passed away. What was it in December? I think it was a year. And they were a sound healer, like the most amazing, like sound healer, like crystal bowls, and he like made amazing music. And he would always talk about like pay attention to the space in between the notes, right? And that's like I feel like, you know, even when we listen to people, it's like let's pay attention to the little silences and the like the space between those notes of conversation, right? Because there's so much to that. It's like that's something that like he shared that's always like so profound with me, right? Yeah.
Well, and I think, you know, as humans, most of us are fixers. We like to fix things. We like people to feel better. We don't want those that we care about to hurt. So oftentimes, instead of listening, we're thinking about advice we can give, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes the most important thing that we can do is just listen. And it's hard. You should practice not giving advice.
It is. It's so hard. Well, you know, it's so hard. And you know, one thing I learned years ago from one of my mentors, I can't remember who to give credit to, but like unsolicited advice is actually like a form of like verbal abuse. Like, and I know that sounds crazy, but it is because they didn't ask for your advice. So like if they asked for your advice, give it. But if they didn't, like it's okay to, you know, give advice for when people ask for advice, but sometimes we just need to kind of like trudge our own path and just have that person to just listen and be that like support, you know, like sometimes like, you know, sometimes things it's like, okay, like listen with our heart. And if we have something we want to say, sometimes we just like, it's better just to keep it inside and, you know, maybe like have that thought to ourselves, but just be there, like listening to the person that needs us to listen to. Like that's powerful listening.
I love how you just brought up listening with your heart, because that's what we talk about in grief recovery is being a listening heart. So that means, like you said, you listen with your heart instead of your head.
Yeah.
You're listening for their feelings and how things have impacted them.
Yes, that's huge, right? It's so huge, right? Yeah, it's so huge. That's just, yeah. That's huge. And like, you know, sharing the memories and maybe even, you know, if you knew that pet or that person, bring up some of like the favorite memories of them. Cause I know like sometimes that can bring up happiness of like, oh my gosh, like I totally didn't remember that. Or like, oh wow. Cause it's really like on that joy. I'm focusing on the silly things. I don't know why this keeps coming to me, but on Luna, I actually know it was the day that I took her in for her appointment. I saw that you could do like this paw print art, right? So I was like, got this like special little like construction paper and like pets safe paint. And I was like, okay, I want to like have her paw prints, right? And she indulged me with like, oh my gosh, like, why are you doing this? But I made these like beautiful, like little like different colors with her paw prints and they didn't turn out perfect. But like it's like a little memory of Luna that I remember having fun with her right in that moment. And actually even before I took her to that appointment, she had this like little toy that I still actually have in a drawer over there all these years later. And it was the one toy she never chewed up. It's like this little like kind of reindeer. And I was trying to get her, she was like wanting to play with me before with that toy. And it's, you know, because sometimes they have that like spurt of energy where like, oh my gosh, like, am I making the right decision? But that's them saying, okay, like I'm at peace with your decision. Like we can both be in joy and know that like it's time and that's okay. Because sometimes that's their way of showing us like, thank you. Right. Does that make sense? Like that was her way of saying like, thank you, you know. And I took her to, what was it, to McDonald's, and I got her like a plain double cheeseburger and an apple pie and all of that before her appointment. And I even took her kitty with her too. So she had her Leo cat, and they were like with each other since he was like an 8-week-old kitten. And so I took him to the appointment too. So he could, you know, be there too. So he knew what happened. And sometimes the animals do want to be there and know. And then other times they're like, no, we're good. But, you know, it's important for them to be a part of the process and that whole thing, I think. So.
Oh, I agree. Definitely agree. And I love the story about the meal. So the last 2 days before we had to let Faith go, she wasn't really eating anything. So we opened up a can of sardines.
Oh, jeez.
that she loved it. So she ate.
Right. And isn't that amazing? Because it's like, just give them what they want at that time, right? Like, it's like, yeah, just give them what they want at that time. It's like, okay, yeah. Yeah.
So that's a memory we'll never forget, and it makes us laugh, you know.
Right. The sardines. It's like, okay, here we go. Yeah.
Right. Stinky.
Right. I know, stinky, right? But yeah, it's like, it's to remember to like find those moments of that amplify that joy, because really joy like helps to bring peace to our hearts. It really does. And I know that sounds crazy. It's like, oh my gosh, how can I find joy in grief? But it's like through the memories. And like 99% of the clients I work with their pets that have transition or are transitioning, they always like to remind people to remember the joy and like remember the good times, and just know that you did the best by me, and know that like, you know, that I helped to orchestrate the timing of all of this, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. They bring so much joy to our lives, and as much as we miss Faith, Shania has been a great addition, like I've said multiple times, to our family, and she reminds me of joy every single day. You know, she's full of life, she's young, she's active.
Right.
Yeah, she's just
and she's full of presence, right? She's full of like, it's like, okay, like, what's she gonna do today? But okay, like, here she is. And they remind us to not get like down on ourselves too. So like, you know, maybe there might be those moments where, you know, we might get frustrated with them, but they remind us like, hey, like, don't get down on ourselves. Like, right. I feel like it's a huge thing that the animals in our lives remind us of, like, hey, like, it's okay. Like, it's no big deal. Like, they don't worry about all the like little things that we worry about, right? They just are like in the moment of the moments, right?
Yeah. They practice present moment awareness.
Yes.
All the time, which is a great reminder for me, because it's so easy to get lost in the past, or, you know, think about the future and what's going to happen. But Shania's like, focus on the present, Mom.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, let's be with that. She's like, yeah. And she keeps showing me. I'm like, okay, I have to share, because she keeps showing me like this like little water and rocks. She's like, water, rocks. I want to watch fish jump. I want to watch fish jump. So I'm like, okay. She's like, I want to have fun. She's like, I want to have fun. So she's like, yeah.
Well, as soon as it cools down, I'll take her for a hike.
Yeah, I know, right? Because it's hot, right? It's like, oh,
yeah. So, well, with that, I just want to let people know that if your heart is hurting because you've lost a pet, or there's things going on with your pet that you're not sure why, you know, please contact Shawna. Please contact me. I'll put our contact information in the comments below. And just Just know that you're not alone, and we will be a listening heart for you, whatever you're going through.
Yes, there's support, right? And know there's support too. And I think it's amazing what you do with the grief recovery method. It's huge, so then people can have that support because it's important. So it's so good that it's out there and that you're doing that too. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Your work's very important too, so that people can understand what's going on with their animals that are here or in spirit. So it's
Thank
helped us
you.
greatly. So I appreciate you for that.
I appreciate you too. And then little side note, because I want to make sure to share this on my page too. I couldn't figure out how to do it while we were on. But it's like, hey, it's okay, right? I'll share afterwards. That's good. But I would love to share with people. Don't you have a retreat coming up too? And what kind of retreat is it?
I do. So I've been doing women's retreats with another individual, a friend of mine named Susan Thurston. And the first two were on self-love. Those were in Oregon. The last one was in Sun River. This one is also a women's retreat. We're really going to look at our belief systems, where we've been in the past, where we currently are, and the life that we want to create moving forward. So we're going to focus on, the vision for our future. So it's going to be in Sisters for October 13th through the 15th.
That's awesome. And if people want to find out about that, they can just go to, is it dawnmichellejackson.com?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Perfect. I love that one too. I think it's important to bring that up too, because the more we do that healing and other things like that for ourselves, that affects the pets in our lives too, right? So those things that we do for ourselves, we're not just doing it for us, we're doing it for them as well.
Yeah, that's very true. It's really true that we need to focus on our own self-care to show up for anyone or anything in our life in the best version we can.
Yes, absolutely. So true. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for doing this live with me. This was so much fun, and maybe we'll have to do it again sometime. It was fun, and yeah.
Definitely. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching, and take care.